In the quaint town of Eldridge Hollow, nestled between rolling hills and whispering woods, time had always flowed gently like the meandering river that cut across its heart. The townsfolk lived simple lives, their routines as predictable as the changing seasons. But beneath this serene veneer, a mystery as old as the town itself lurked in the shadows, waiting for the right moment to unravel the fabric of reality. It was on a crisp autumn evening, with leaves painted in fiery hues of gold and crimson, that Tom Henderson stumbled upon the ancient iron-bound chest in his late grandmother's attic, a discovery that would propel him into the heart of Eldridge Hollow's darkest legend, and a quest that would consume his very being.
As the sun dips below the horizon, the sky is painted with the last streaks of orange and purple, signaling the end of daylight. The tranquility of twilight is abruptly broken by the sound of a car engine laboring down a desolate highway. The relentless rain pounds the landscape, turning the road into a reflective mirror that gleams under the occasional streetlight. Tom, a man in his early 40s with a weathered face and determined ease, grips the steering wheel of his aging sedan. His gaze flicks between the road ahead and the fuel gauge needle hovering ominously over E. With each passing mile, his anxiety mounts. The isolation of the road weighs heavily on him, and the need for a gas station grows more desperate. The wipers struggle against the downpour, providing Tom with a staccato rhythm that matches his increasing heartbeat. The car's headlights carve a path through the darkness, revealing the relentless sheets of rain that obscure his vision. He squints to make out the shapes and shadows that move just beyond the reach of the light. Suddenly, a flicker of neon cuts through the gloom. A sign comes into view, its letters partially illuminated to spell out gas. Relief washes over Tom, though it's quickly tempered by a sense of unease. The gas station appears abandoned, a relic from another time with its rusted pumps and a convenience store that looks untouched by modern hands. He pulls off the highway and into the station, the crunch of gravel under tires breaking the monotonous drone of the rain. The car comes to a stop beside the pump, and Tom sits for a moment, listening to the engine tick as it cools. He takes a deep breath, steeling himself against the feeling that something isn't quite right. Opening the car door, he steps out into the downpour. The rain soaks through his clothes, chilling him to the bone. He approaches the gas pump, which stands like a silent sentinel in the night. The pump is an antique, its paint peeling and handle worn from years of use. Tom reaches out, half expecting it not to work, but the digital display flickers to life, casting an eerie glow on his face. The pump whirs to life, and the scent of gasoline mingles with the wet earth. Tom's relief is palpable. It seems he might make it through the night after all. As he fills the tank, he glances around the deserted station, the hair on the back of his neck standing on end. The convenience store's windows are dark, and for a moment he thinks he sees movement inside. Shaking off the feeling, Tom finishes up and heads to the store to pay, unaware that his night has only just begun. The station, with its flickering sign and ghostly presence, holds secrets that Tom cannot yet fathom. As the last light of twilight fades, the darkness grows deeper, and the true nature of this forsaken place starts to reveal itself. The incessant rain continues to pour down as Tom, his clothes now thoroughly soaked, makes his way to the convenience store. The neon sign that had once beckoned travelers now flickers erratically, casting an otherworldly glow over the forecourt. The store stands silent, its windows dark and foreboding, yet Tom is driven by necessity to approach. With each step, his boots splash in the puddles that have accumulated on the uneven concrete. The sound of the rain seems to grow louder, muffling the subtle noises of the night. Tom reaches the entrance, his hand hesitating momentarily before he grasps the cold metal handle and pushes the door open. A bell chimes somewhere within the depths of the store, its sound eerie and distorted. The interior is shrouded in darkness, save for the faint glow of emergency lights that do little to penetrate the gloom. The shelves are lined with products that seem untouched, covered in a fine layer of dust and grime, as if time itself has forgotten this place. Tom calls out, his voice barely above a whisper. "Hello? Anyone here?" The silence that follows feels heavy, almost suffocating. He fumbles for a light switch but finds none. Instead, his hand brushes against a flashlight lying on the counter. He picks it up, clicks it on, and a beam of light cuts through the darkness. The light reveals more of the store's interior, with its vintage advertisements and faded signs. Tom's heart pounds in his chest as he moves cautiously, the flashlight's beam his only guide. He reaches the cashier's counter, expecting to find someone, anyone, but it's abandoned, a ghostly echo of its former purpose. As Tom scans the room, a sudden movement catches his eye. He whirls around, the flashlight beam dancing wildly across the aisles. But there's nothing, just the echo of his own movements and the relentless drumming of rain against the roof. Tom's sense of unease grows. He decides to leave some cash on the counter for the gas and make a hasty exit. But as he turns to leave, the flashlight flickers and dies, plunging him back into darkness. A chill runs down his spine, and he can feel the hairs on his arms stand on end. In that moment, a low, guttural noise rises above the sound of the rain. It's coming from outside, near the pumps. Tom's instincts scream at him to flee, but he needs to know. He edges back toward the door, his senses on high alert. He steps outside, and the rain assaults him once more. The noise grows louder, a mechanical groaning that seems almost alive. Tom's eyes are drawn to the pump where he had just filled his car. The digital display is flickering wildly, numbers rolling as if the pump is in use, but there's no one there, just the ghostly apparition of a figure, translucent and shimmering in the rain. Tom's breath catches in his throat as he watches the phantom-like form, its movements slow and deliberate. The figure seems to be operating the pump, its actions mirroring those of a living person. But as quickly as it appeared, the figure dissipates into the rain, leaving Tom alone with the whirring of the pump and the realization that the station holds more than just fuel. It harbors the echoes of the past, a spectral reminder that some places are touched by the otherworldly. With a newfound urgency, Tom rushes back to his car, the need to escape this haunted place overwhelming him. He starts the engine, the car's headlights cutting through the darkness as he accelerates away from the gas station, leaving the phantom of the pump behind him. But as he glances in the rearview mirror, he can't shake the feeling that a part of the station's mystery has latched onto him, a silent passenger in the night. Tom's heart raced in his chest as his car sped down the wet highway. Rain brushed fiercely off the windshield while his hands gripped the steering wheel tightly. In the rush to escape that gas station, his thoughts were jumbled with unease and confusion. What was it about that ghostly figure looming in the rain, that apparition at the gas pump? What on earth had he seen? Inside the car, the only sounds were the rain pounding on the roof and the occasional clap of thunder, which made Tom feel even more alone. He tried to focus on the road, but the image of the apparition was like it was burned into his mind and couldn't be erased. His eyes inadvertently glanced into the rearview mirror, and the sight there made his heart skip a beat. In the mirror, he saw a blurry figure sitting in the back seat. He jerked his head around, but the back seat was empty, just a drenched seat and messy papers. Tom's breathing became rapid as he tried to convince himself that it was just his overstimulated brain playing tricks on him. He looked in the rearview mirror again, and this time there was nothing out of the ordinary. He took a deep breath, tried to calm himself, and continued driving. But as his eyes moved involuntarily to the mirror again, the figure appeared again. This time, it was more clearly defined, as if it were a man in old-fashioned gas station coveralls, his face pale and his eyes hollow, as if he were staring at Tom. Tom's heart almost beat out of his chest, his hands began to shake, and the vehicle began to lose control on the slippery road. He quickly slowed down, and then stopped on the side of the road, the headlights behind him casting a blurry halo in the rain. He didn't dare look in the rearview mirror again, but turned to check the back seat. There was a faint smell of gasoline in the air, which reminded him of the gas station and the apparition he had seen. He began to wonder if the apparition had followed him, if it had become his companion without his knowledge. Tom knew he couldn't just stay here. He needed to find help, or at least find a crowded place. He restarted the car and continued on through the rain, but now he knew he wasn't alone. The man in the mirror, that spectral presence, was now a reality he couldn't escape. Tom kept reminding himself that he had to stay calm and not let fear take over. But even as he weaved through the traffic, he felt no sense of security. He knew that this uneasiness and fear would not go away until he uncovered the secrets of that gas station and confronted his own demons head-on. The rain had subsided, but a dense fog now enveloped the town, shrouding the streets in a ghostly veil. Tom drove slowly, his headlights barely cutting through the gloom. The image of the spectral figure in his rearview mirror haunted him, a constant reminder of the eerie encounter at the gas station. As he reached the heart of the town, Tom noticed that the usually bustling streets were desolate. A sense of unease settled in his stomach. He parked his car near the local diner, a place that was always alive with the chatter of townsfolk. But tonight, it was different. The neon open sign flickered erratically, casting an ominous glow. Stepping out of his car, Tom approached the diner. The door was ajar, which was unusual for this hour. The bell above the door didn't ring as he pushed it open, its chimes silenced by the pervasive silence of the place. The diner was empty, chairs upturned and a coffee pot left abandoned, mid-drip. It was as if the patrons had vanished into thin air. Tom called out, "Hello? Is anyone here?" But his voice seemed to be swallowed by the void. He noticed a newspaper on the counter, the headline screaming, "Local disappearances continue to baffle authorities." A chill ran down his spine as he realized that the diner's occupants might have become the latest victims. He quickly left the diner and checked the surrounding area. The streets were littered with signs of abrupt abandonment, cars parked with doors left open, a child's tricycle lying on its side, a dog leash dangling from a post with no dog in sight. The town had been struck by a series of mysterious disappearances over the past few weeks, and it seemed that tonight, the phenomenon had claimed an entire diner full of people. Tom felt a growing responsibility to uncover the truth, not just for his own peace of mind, but for the sake of the town's terrified residents. As he returned to his car, the fog seemed to whisper secrets, and the weight of the unknown pressed heavily upon him. Tom knew he would have to delve deeper into the town's mysteries, but he also feared what he might find. The ghostly figure that haunted his rearview mirror was perhaps just the beginning of a much darker reality. With determination set in his eyes, Tom drove off into the foggy night, the sense of being watched never quite leaving him. The mystery of the disappearing townspeople was a puzzle he was intent on solving, but the question remained, would he be the next to vanish without a trace? Tom's car cut through the fog like a ship navigating uncharted waters. The town's clock tower loomed ahead, its hands frozen at midnight, as if time itself had stopped. He parked beside the tower and stepped out, the silence of the town echoing in his ears like a forgotten melody. As he approached the base of the clock tower, Tom felt a strange sensation, a vibration in the air that made his hair stand on end. The town square, usually a hub of activity, lay deserted, the abandoned stalls of the market casting long, forlorn shadows on the cobblestones. He circled the tower, searching for any clue that might explain the bizarre occurrences. That's when he noticed it, a faint shimmer in the air, like heat rising from asphalt on a hot day, but it was cold to the touch. It surrounded the clock tower, a barely perceptible distortion that seemed to beckon him closer. With a mixture of trepidation and curiosity, Tom reached out his hand. The moment his fingertips brushed the distortion, the world around him warped. The colors of his surroundings bled away into grayscale, and the silence was replaced by a low hum, as if reality itself was resonating. Tom pulled his hand back in shock, but the damage was done. The air around the clock tower rippled and twisted, and he watched in horror as the hands of the clock began to spin wildly in reverse. The hum grew louder, and the ground beneath his feet seemed to buckle and roll like the deck of a ship in a storm. He stumbled backward, trying to escape the pull of the distortion, but it was as if the whole square was caught in a temporal maelstrom. The buildings around him flickered, showing different states of disrepair and construction, cycling through years, perhaps even centuries in mere moments. It dawned on Tom that the town's mysterious disappearances might be linked to this anomaly. Were the missing people trapped in different times? Was this the work of some unnatural force, or had the town unwittingly disturbed something ancient and powerful? Suddenly, the spinning of the clock hands slowed, and the hum subsided to a whisper. Time snapped back into place with a jolt that knocked Tom to his knees. He looked up to see the town restored to its normal state, but now he held a tangible piece of the puzzle. He knew he couldn't face this alone. He needed to find help, someone who would believe him, someone who could make sense of the impossible. With the image of the time-warped square burned into his memory, Tom raced back to his car, the clock tower's once still hands now ticking forward as if nothing had happened. As he drove away, Tom glanced in the rearview mirror, half expecting to see the ghostly figure again. But this time, he was met only with the sight of his own determined eyes. He was no longer running from his fears. He was driving headlong into the heart of the mystery, ready to unravel the secrets of the temporal distortion that had gripped the town in its silent, invisible chaos. The engine of Tom's car roared as he sped away from the town square, the clock tower shrinking in his rearview mirror. His mind raced with the events he had just witnessed, the time distortion at the tower's base both a lead and a warning. He needed answers, and there was one place he hadn't yet looked, the local library. Upon reaching the library, Tom found the doors eerily ajar. He entered cautiously, the musty smell of old books and the silence of the deserted aisles greeting him. The library seemed untouched by the time anomalies, a sanctuary of knowledge amidst the chaos. He made his way to the local history section, his fingers tracing the spines of the books until he found what he was looking for, a collection of folklore and legends from the town's early days. Dust flew as he flipped through the pages, searching for any reference to the clock tower or similar phenomena. Then he found it, a legend about a curse placed upon the town by a scorned witch centuries ago. The story told of a time when the townspeople, driven by fear, had wrongfully accused a woman of witchcraft. As punishment for their injustice, she cursed the town to suffer a fate of disappearing into the folds of time, lost to the world. The legend mentioned a talisman, an object of great power that the witch had possessed, which could control the flow of time. It was rumored to be buried with her in an unmarked grave somewhere within the town's limits. Tom's heart pounded as he considered the possibility. Could this talisman be the key to stopping the distortions and saving the missing townspeople? He knew it was a long shot, but it was the only lead he had. Determined to break the curse, Tom set out to locate the witch's grave. He scoured old maps and records, piecing together the town's layout from the past. As night fell, he found himself standing before the town's oldest cemetery, a place of forgotten headstones and whispered superstitions. The moon cast a pale light as Tom walked among the graves, searching for any sign of an unmarked burial site. Finally, in the cemetery's oldest section, he stumbled upon a patch of earth that seemed undisturbed, yet oddly out of place. With his hands and a borrowed shovel, Tom began to dig, the soil giving way beneath his efforts. Hours passed, and just as exhaustion threatened to overcome him, his shovel struck something hard. He cleared the dirt to reveal an ancient, iron-bound chest. His heart racing, Tom opened the chest to find a talisman inside, glowing with an inner light that pulsed like a beating heart. As he touched it, a sense of calm washed over him, and he knew he had found what he was looking for. But the curse would not be broken so easily. A chilling wind swept through the cemetery, and Tom felt the gaze of unseen watchers upon him. He clutched the talisman tightly, whispering a plea for the curse to be lifted. The wind died down, and a profound silence enveloped the cemetery. Tom held his breath, waiting for a sign. And then, just as suddenly as it had all begun, the air shimmered, and the world settled into a stillness that felt like a promise. Tom emerged from the cemetery with the talisman in hand, a sense of hope guiding him back to the town square. He was ready to confront the curse, to restore the missing people, and to end the cycle of fear and disappearance that had haunted the town for too long. As he approached the clock tower once more, he could feel the power of the talisman working against the curse. The witch's legacy would no longer claim the souls of the innocent, and the town would be free from the grip of the temporal distortion. With the talisman's warmth against his chest, Tom approached the clock tower as the town lay silent, its residents unaware of the battle being fought on their behalf. The midnight hour was close at hand, and the echoes of the past seemed to reverberate through the empty streets. As the clock hands neared 12, a low hum began to fill the air, a sound that seemed to emanate from the very fabric of time itself. Tom could feel the talisman pulsating more intensely now, its glow casting eerie shadows on the cobblestone paths. He stood at the base of the clock tower, the site where he had first witnessed the time distortion. He could sense the curse's presence, a malevolent force clinging to the tower like an unshakable shadow. But Tom was no longer a man driven by fear. He was the bearer of the talisman, the only hope to break the cycle that had ensnared the town. As the clock struck 12, Tom raised the talisman above his head. The air crackled with energy, and a brilliant light burst forth from the artifact, enveloping the tower in a radiant aura. The ground trembled, and the tower itself seemed to groan under the weight of the centuries-old curse. Then, from the heart of the light, the echoes of the past emerged, voices of the townspeople who had vanished, their whispers melding together in a chorus of longing and regret. Tom listened as the voices grew louder, their words telling tales of lives cut short and time unspent. The talisman's light reached its zenith, and with a final desperate push, Tom channeled all his will into the artifact. The whispers crescendoed into a deafening roar, and then, in a flash of blinding light, silence fell. Tom blinked against the darkness that had once again settled over the town. The clock tower stood unchanged, its hands now moving steadily forward. But the oppressive air of the curse was gone, replaced by a feeling of peace that whispered through the streets like a long-forgotten lullaby. As the minutes ticked by, something miraculous began to happen. One by one, the missing townspeople reappeared, materializing from the shadows as if stepping out of a dream. Confused but unharmed, they embraced one another, their joyous laughter filling the night. Tom watched the reunions with a weary but contented smile. The curse had been lifted, the echoes of midnight silenced by the power of the talisman. The witch's vengeance had been appeased, her curse undone by the determination of one man who dared to challenge the impossible. As dawn approached, the town slowly awoke to a new beginning. The tales of the time-warped square and the midnight echoes would live on, but now as a testament to the town's resilience and the courage of an unlikely hero. Tom, with the talisman now dormant in his hand, looked up at the clock tower one last time. The hands pointed to the future, a future free from the curse that had once threatened to erase them all. With a nod of respect to the past and a hopeful gaze forward, Tom walked away from the tower, ready to greet the day and all the days to come.